The ocean whispers with secrets older than time. Waves rise and fall like the breath of a sleeping world. Beneath the shimmering surface lies a kingdom unseen. Darkness stretches endlessly, where sunlight dares not wander. Yet in that silence, life hums in delicate harmony. Fish glimmer like drifting stars, weaving through shadowed reefs. Whales sing in voices deep, echoing across eternity. And currents carry forgotten stories through liquid corridors. One story begins with a god restless in his realm. Poseidon, lord of the seas, master of tide and storm. His trident commands oceans, yet his heart feels hollow. For even gods hunger for mysteries left unanswered. Whispers reach him, carried by dreams of silver light. They speak of a flame hidden where silence reigns. Not fire, but something greater, born of the sea. The depth flame, glowing in a temple of memory. It is said to reveal truths beyond sight and sound, a light to awaken what even gods forget. And so the journey begins into the deep unknown, where Poseidon seeks more than power, he seeks remembrance. Listen closely, for the tide carries this story to you. The sea stretched wide, endless and full of shifting colors. Yet Poseidon stood restless, watching the tides with heavy eyes. The waves obeyed him, yet they felt hollow in their devotion. Storms bent to his will, but the thunder no longer thrilled him. He had ruled for centuries, yet silence lingered in his heart. It was not power he lacked, but meaning he longed to find. He roamed coral palaces and sunlit shallows in quiet thought. Dolphins leapt in arcs of joy, but their laughter did not reach him. Schools of fish shimmered like scattered jewels, yet left him unmoved. Even the songs of whales could not stir his ancient spirit. For every kingdom, every realm, hides its own unanswered mystery. Poseidon's mystery was not of conquest, but of memory. He wondered if the ocean itself held truths hidden from him. Could there be a secret older than gods, deeper than storms? One night, as currents drifted slow, he dreamed of silver light, a flame without fire, glowing in the endless black of the abyss. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, waiting, calling his name. The dream returned again and again, each vision brighter than before. He awoke with a strange ache, as if something was missing. The seas still answered him, yet their voice felt distant. He asked the currents, but they swirled without reply. He listened to the winds, but they only carried silence. Only in his dreams did the whisper of the flame remain. Whispers said it rested in the deep, where sunlight never lived. A place so silent even gods rarely dared to linger. There, in darkness, the depth flame was said to sleep. Not a weapon, not a curse, but a light of remembrance. Legends claimed it revealed forgotten truths of sea and sky. A light that shone not outward, but inward, into the soul. Poseidon feared nothing. Yet this vision unsettled him deeply. What if the flame revealed what even he wished to forget? Still, curiosity grew stronger than caution, like a tide unbroken. He gazed down into the trenches, where shadows swallowed worlds. And in those shadows, he felt the faintest pulse of warmth. The call was subtle, yet it echoed louder than any storm. It was not power the flame promised, but something greater. It promised memory, purpose, and truths left unspoken. Poseidon's restlessness turned into resolve, strong as stone cliffs. If the depth flame waited, then he would descend to find it. Not for glory, not for conquest, but for the hunger of knowing. The god of the sea, mighty and eternal, longed for remembrance. And so his journey inward began, before the journey below. For the greatest depth he faced was not the ocean itself. It was the depth of his own silence, waiting to be broken. Legends flowed through the ocean like drifting currents, soft yet enduring. They spoke of the depth flame, a secret woven into the abyss. Not fire that burns, but a light that remembers what time forgets. The oldest whales carried fragments of the tale in their songs. Even the coral, grown into vast cathedrals, held whispers of it. No mortal sailor ever claimed to see it and return. No god besides Poseidon dared to seek where it slept. The depth flame was born, they said, when the sea first breathed. A spark of creation, hidden deep to guard its purity. It was placed where silence weighed heavier than stone, a realm untouched by sun where currents barely stirred. The flame did not blaze, but glowed with steady patience. It revealed not visions of the world outside, but within. It showed the heart of those who sought it, unclouded. Some feared it, for truth can feel heavier than darkness. Others longed for it, hoping to find clarity in its glow. Poseidon listened to these whispers carried by the tides. Each tale varied, yet the essence remained the same. The depth flame was not power, but revelation, a mirror of memory, shining with secrets too vast to hold. Poseidon wondered what truths it might reveal to him. Would it show forgotten origins of the sea's first tides? Would it echo the voices of ancient waters before time? Or would it expose the doubts he buried beneath storms? The thought unsettled him, yet fascination grew stronger. Gods rarely feared storms, yet they could fear silence. Silence is where memory rises, sharp and unrelenting. In dreams, Poseidon felt the flames call again. It appeared as liquid light, flowing yet unconsumed. Its glow reached toward him, but never closed the distance. Always waiting, always hidden, patient as the deep itself. The dreams left him restless, yearning for understanding. He sought counsel in the song of the whales. They told him the flame was older than their kind, older than coral, older than stars reflected on waves. It was the sea's own memory, sealed in light. Poseidon realized then why the stories endured. Mortals sought riches, gods sought dominion. But this was different. This was not possession, but reflection of being. To touch the flame was to know oneself beyond measure. The god of the sea felt a rare vulnerability. He held the oceans, yet feared what memory might show. Still, the call was undeniable, rising like a tide. He knew the journey was not of conquest, but of spirit. He must face the deep, not as ruler, but as seeker. The depth flame awaited where silence met eternity. And Poseidon prepared to descend, guided not by power, but by wonder. The call of the deep grew louder with each passing tide. Poseidon felt it not in sound, but in the pulse of his being. The ocean itself seemed to lean toward the hidden abyss. Currents shifted strangely, like threads weaving a secret path. Creatures of the sea moved in patterns he had never seen. Glowing fish gathered in spirals, circling as if pointing downward. Whales changed their songs, their tones deeper, drawn to silence. Even the smallest shells on the shore hummed faint vibrations. Poseidon knew the sea was guiding him, urging him to descend. It was not force, but invitation, gentle and persistent as tides. Each night his dreams filled with visions of liquid light. Each day the waters whispered, "Come deeper, come closer." At last, he rose from his coral throne and obeyed. He left behind the bright shallows where sunlight danced freely. He passed through forests of kelp swaying like silent guardians. Schools of silver fish parted before him in shimmering curtains. Sharks watched from the shadows, but none dared to follow. Dolphins swam beside him briefly, then turned back in silence. The water cooled as Poseidon descended into darker realms. Colors faded until only faint glows guided his way. Jellyfish drifted like lanterns, their bodies pulsing with quiet rhythm. Strange creatures appeared, unseen by mortals, glowing with inner fire. Their lights formed trails, like stars mapped across a liquid sky. Poseidon understood these were not accidents, but signs. The sea itself marked the way with luminous guides. Deeper still, he entered canyons carved by ancient currents. Walls of stone rose high, etched with patterns of time. Every echo seemed alive, repeating the beat of his heart. He felt the ocean watching, vast and aware of his steps. At times the silence pressed heavy, thicker than the water itself. Yet within that silence, Poseidon heard something greater. It was not emptiness, but anticipation, patient and eternal. The flame was near, its memory echoing through the dark. Poseidon's trident glowed faintly, reflecting the unseen current. It trembled, not from fear, but from resonance with the deep. The journey was no longer his alone, it was shared. The sea, the creatures, the currents, all moved with him. A path invisible to mortals stretched into the abyss. He followed, not as a conqueror, but as a seeker. Each pulse of light grew stronger, like a heartbeat calling. The dark was no longer a void, but a living map. Poseidon realized the ocean itself remembered the way. It carried within it the knowledge of creation's first spark. The depth flame was not hidden in defiance, but in care. It waited where silence and memory intertwined as one. As Poseidon sank deeper, he felt both small and infinite. The sea was leading him home to a truth older than gods. Through the endless descent, Poseidon sensed a shift in the deep. The currents grew still, as if holding their breath in silence. Before him rose vast pillars of coral shaped like ancient spires. They reached upward from the trench, glowing faintly with inner light. Between them stretched a gateway carved not by nature, but design. A forgotten temple of the sea, hidden where no mortal eyes had wandered. Its walls were formed of stone older than mountains above. Barnacles and moss clung to it, yet patterns shone beneath. Symbols spiraled across the surface like language of the waves. Poseidon approached, his trident glowing brighter with each stroke. The temple pulsed with memory, alive though abandoned for ages. It seemed to recognize him, as if awaiting his arrival. The doorway opened soundlessly, unveiling a vast chamber of stillness. Inside, the silence was deeper than any he had known. No fish swam here, no current stirred the heavy water. Yet the chamber glowed with a soft, unearthly radiance. The walls shimmered with murals telling stories older than gods. He saw oceans forming when the first light touched the void. He saw tides rising before the sky even learned to turn. He saw creatures of the deep born from sparks of starlight. Each mural pulsed with life, not painted but living memory. Poseidon reached out, his hand brushing against the stone. It felt warm, as if beating with the heart of the sea. The images shifted, revealing scenes of harmony and balance. The ocean was not meant for conquest, but for nurture. It was cradle and memory, keeper of beginnings and endings. In the temple's heart, a dais rose like a gentle wave. Upon it rested a faint glow, flickering yet unconsumed. It was not the depth flame itself, but its reflection. A guide marking that he had reached the threshold. Poseidon knelt before it, though kneeling was not his way. He bowed, not from submission, but from reverence. The chamber hummed with acknowledgement, as if the sea approved. In that moment, Poseidon felt smaller than he had ever been. Not a ruler, but a child standing before the sea's memory. he whispered softly, though no one was there to hear. "Guide me," he said, voice echoing like distant thunder. The temple responded with light flowing across its walls. Symbols aligned, forming a map leading deeper still. It pointed to the abyss below, where silence reigned eternal. Poseidon rose, filled not with pride, but with purpose. The temple had given its blessing, marking his path. He turned toward the dark once more, guided by the flame. Behind him, the murals dimmed, their glow fading to sleep. Before him stretched the unknown, alive with memory and promise. And Poseidon swam downward, ready to face what waited beyond. From the temple's gate, Poseidon swam deeper into the trench below. The silence grew heavier, wrapping around him like a living cloak. Every beat of his heart echoed as if the sea itself listened. He followed the glowing path marked by symbols etched into stone. Soon the current shifted, warmer and filled with strange resonance. From the darkness, a presence stirred, vast and formless, yet aware. It was not a beast nor a god, but something older. A shimmering figure appeared, woven of light and flowing water. Its shape changed constantly, as if made of memory and tide. Poseidon paused, his trident dimming in respect before the apparition. The figure spoke, though no voice carried through the water. Its words were felt, not heard, like ripples in the soul. "I am the keeper of echoes," the being declared in silence. "Guardian of remembrance, watcher of the depth flame's glow." Poseidon's gaze hardened, yet his spirit softened at the presence. "Keeper," he answered, his thoughts shaping words within the stillness. "I have come seeking the depth flame and the truths it hides." Keeper's form shimmered, reflecting countless faces of the ocean. Few have come, fewer still have understood why they came. The flame is not for power, nor for those who conquer. It reveals, it remembers, it unmasks the silence within. Poseidon's grip on his trident loosened as doubt stirred within him. Was he ready for what the flame might show? The keeper drifted closer, its light surrounding him like dawn. "You must prove not strength, but stillness of spirit. Only those who listen to the sea's quiet voice may enter." Poseidon understood the challenge was not of battle, but of balance. The sea had always mirrored his storms, his tempests of will. Now it asked for calm, for patience beyond eternity. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of waters around him. The silence pressed deeper, yet he let it fill him whole. His trident dimmed, and for the first time, he released control. The waves within his heart slowed, steady as the ocean's breath. The keeper's form brightened, glowing like a star beneath the sea. "You begin to understand," it whispered into his soul. "The flame remembers, but only if you too remember." Poseidon opened his eyes, and the abyss no longer felt empty. Every shadow pulsed with unseen life, every silence carried song. The keeper stepped aside, the waters parting to reveal a path. A corridor of darkness stretched ahead, ending in radiant glow. It was the way to the flame, waiting beyond fear and pride. Poseidon bowed once, not in defeat but in reverence for truth. The keeper dissolved into the current, its duty fulfilled. Alone yet guided, Poseidon swam forward, heart steady, spirit listening. The depth flame awaited, closer now than ever before. The passage narrowed as Poseidon drifted forward into the hidden corridor. Darkness pressed in, yet ahead a soft glow guided his path. The water thickened, heavy as if soaked with ancient memory. Each movement felt slower, like swimming through time itself. Whispers echoed faintly, voices of the sea's forgotten past. He recognized none, yet they stirred something deep within. The corridor walls shimmered with markings older than gods. Symbols shifted as though alive, breathing with silent rhythm. Poseidon reached out, his hand brushing glowing stone. Visions flashed, cities of coral, temples lost to storms. He saw sailors offering prayers before journeys long past. He saw laughter, songs, and tears carried by the sea. Each image pierced him, not with pain, but with weight. The weight of lives remembered, never fully gone. The whispers grew clearer, weaving into a single voice. It was the sea itself, speaking without words. You seek the flame, but the flame is not alone. Every soul touched by the ocean walks with you. Poseidon felt humbled, smaller than the world he ruled. For once, he was not the master, but the student. The corridor widened into a chamber vast and still. At its heart, a radiance pulsed like a living heartbeat. The depth flame floated within a shell of crystal water. It was not fire, but light, pure and eternal. Its glow danced, shifting like waves beneath eternal dawn. Poseidon's breath caught, though gods did not need air. The flame seemed alive, aware of his presence. It flickered brighter, then dimmer, like testing his intent. He swam closer, but hesitation rippled through his chest. The keeper's words lingered, not strength, but stillness. He tightened his grip on the trident, then released it. The weapon drifted downward, landing softly on the sea floor. Unarmed, unshielded, he approached the radiant flame. The glow expanded, bathing him in light like memory. Suddenly, images flooded him, brighter than stars. He saw the birth of oceans when the world was young. He saw creatures rising, evolving, shaping the endless blue. He saw mortals building ships, chasing horizons of hope. And he saw himself, ruler, guardian, yet often distant. Moments of triumph, but also silence left unanswered. The flame did not judge, it simply remembered. It showed him what he had forgotten of himself. A god bound not only to storms, but to stories, to carry the lives of those who trusted the sea. Poseidon's chest tightened, not with pride, but with awe. He whispered into the glow, "I understand." The flame pulsed gently, as if it too understood. Its light wrapped around him, filling every shadow within. And for the first time in ages, Poseidon felt whole. Not as a god of storms, but as memory's keeper. The depth flame had revealed its gift and its burden, and Poseidon accepted both, with reverence in his heart. The chamber glowed softly as Poseidon lingered before the depth flame. The visions faded, but their weight still pressed upon his heart. He felt both renewed and burdened, as though crowned with memory. The silence held him, not empty but alive with whispers. Each breath of water carried fragments of voices from the past. He realized the flame had not only shown him the sea, it had shown him himself, reflected in every current and wave. Poseidon closed his eyes, letting the glow seep into his soul. The ocean was no longer just a kingdom. It was a story. And he, though a god, was merely one part of its telling. The chamber began to shift, the walls trembling like awakening stone. From the crystal waters around the flame, ripples spread outward. The currents thickened, forming shapes, outlines of countless beings. They were memories embodied, fragments made whole for a moment. Fishermen, sailors, children laughing on shores, voices calling prayers. All who had touched the ocean walked now within the glow. Poseidon's gaze softened as they drifted around him like stars. None feared him, None bowed. They simply existed beside him. The flame was not his to own, but to safeguard. The realization struck him deeper than any trident's thrust could. He whispered, "The sea remembers all, and I must remember too." The figures turned, faces serene, then dissolved into the water. The light of the flame pulsed, then steadied, calm as a tide. It did not demand nor command, only offered what was eternal. Poseidon reached forward, his hand hovering near its glow. He did not take nor claim, but simply touched the light. Warmth spread through him, not heat, but harmony unbroken. It filled him with balance, storm, and stillness intertwined. The truth formed in him. Gods are keepers, not masters. The ocean had given him power, but also responsibility. To guide, to protect, to carry memory without forgetting. As he pulled his hand away, the flame dimmed slightly. Not in loss, but in trust, as though it had shared. Poseidon bowed once more, this time not as a ruler. He bowed as a guardian, humbled by the sea's vast heart. The chamber quieted, the glow settling into gentle rhythm. The trident, resting on the sea floor, shimmered faintly in response. When Poseidon lifted it, it no longer felt the same. It was lighter, yet heavier, as though carrying unseen voices. The whispers echoed within him, guiding rather than burdening. He turned, leaving the flame behind, though its light stayed within. The path ahead was clear, not of stone, but of purpose. As he swam back through the corridor, silence greeted him. Yet silence no longer felt empty, but rich with meaning. The Keeper of Echoes did not reappear, yet its presence lingered. Poseidon knew the trial was past, but the journey not over. For memory was not a gift to keep, but to carry forward. And the world above still waited, unknowingly tied to the sea. He ascended slowly, each movement steady, a god reborn in silence. The depth flame remained, eternal, a light for all who listen. The ocean stretched endlessly as Poseidon rose from the depths below. The journey from the flame had changed him in unseen ways. His trident shimmered faintly, glowing with the whispers of memory. Every current felt different now, alive with countless voices. The sea no longer bent to him. It spoke through him. He swam slowly, not with haste, but with reverence for silence. Above, shafts of sunlight pierced the water, golden and soft. Each beam felt like a bridge between depths and sky. For the first time, Poseidon wondered how mortals saw the sea. Not as endless power, but as mystery both kind and cruel. He thought of sailors whispering prayers before each voyage. He thought of families waiting on shores for safe return. The ocean held them all, whether in sorrow or joy. And now he carried their echoes, bound within his spirit. As he neared the surface, waves rolled with unusual calm. It was as though the ocean itself held its breath. Breaking through, Poseidon emerged beneath a sky wide and blue. The wind touched his face like an old friend forgotten. He felt the air as part of the same story. Land stretched faintly in the distance, green against the horizon. He remembered temples built for him on cliffs by the sea. He remembered offerings, songs, and the faith of mortals. But he also remembered storms he had sent in anger, moments when pride had drowned out patience within his heart. Now the whispers reminded him, gods must listen as well. He walked upon the water, each step steady as thought. The waves did not bow. They accompanied him like kin. Seabirds circled overhead, their cries sharp yet harmonious. He looked down and saw schools of fish gliding below. Every creature, great and small, was part of the memory. The depth flame had shown him what he had ignored. That power without remembrance was an empty tide. That silence was not emptiness, but a keeper of truth. Poseidon raised his gaze to the horizon's far edge. He felt the pull of lands where people still prayed, not out of fear, but hope woven with uncertainty. He knew he must walk among their stories again, not as stormbringer, but as guardian of their bond. His trident pulsed softly, carrying the rhythm of the sea. It was no longer only a weapon, but a vessel for voices, memories, and truths untold. The ocean roared suddenly, not in fury but in song. A song of waves, gulls, winds, and distant shores. Poseidon listened, closing his eyes to the vastness. For he knew the journey was no longer only his. The depth flame remained behind, yet its light was within him. And wherever he walked, the sea would remember. He was not just Poseidon, god of storms. He was Poseidon, keeper of echoes, guardian of remembrance. And his path stretched onward, boundless as the tide. The sea stretched calm, but Poseidon sensed a stirring deep within. It was not the flame's light, but the ocean's own heartbeat. The whispers grew stronger, threading through waves like woven tides. They spoke of balance, of memories shared, of harmony unseen. He followed the current, letting it guide him without resistance. Soon, he reached a coastline where mortals lived by the water. Children laughed on the shore, tossing shells into the surf. Fishermen mended nets, their voices singing old seaborne songs. Their lives were simple, yet bound inseparably to the waves. Poseidon watched unseen, the god hidden within mortal silence. He felt the echoes of their ancestors within their laughter. Each soul carried the ocean's touch, whether they knew or not. The whispers reminded him. Remembrance was not only divine, it belonged also to those who lived, loved, and endured. Poseidon stepped from the sea, walking upon the sand. The mortals looked up, their eyes wide yet without fear. He did not appear in thunder or storm, but in stillness. The sea behind him rippled gently, calm as a lullaby. An elder stepped forward, bowing slightly, voice steady with awe. "Lord of the seas," he said, "why do you walk among us?" Poseidon's voice carried not thunder, but the depth of waves. "I come not to demand, but to remember with you." His words stirred them, for gods rarely spoke of remembrance. The children grew quiet, listening as the tide hushed. The fishermen lowered their nets, hands resting in reverence. Poseidon raised his trident, its glow soft and warm. The whispers spread, heard not only by him, but by all. The mortals felt their ancestors' presence ripple through their hearts. Memories of voyages, storms survived, and songs once sung. Tears welled in eyes, but they were tears of connection. For in that moment, the ocean spoke to them too. They felt not fear of its depths, but kinship unbroken. Poseidon saw their faces, each one a living memory, and he knew the flame's gift was not his alone. It was meant to be shared, passed from sea to soul. He lowered his trident, the light fading into calm waters. The whispers grew softer, resting now within the hearts of many. The elder bowed once more, voice trembling with gratitude. "You remind us that the sea carries not only storms, but love." Poseidon nodded, his gaze tender as he turned back. The tide touched his feet, pulling gently, calling him home. He walked into the waves, disappearing beneath the horizon. But the whispers lingered, carried now in mortal voices. Songs rose from the shore, old words renewed with meaning. The god of storms had become the keeper of silence. And through silence, remembrance spread wider than the tides. As night fell, the stars mirrored the ocean's quiet glow. The depth flame's truth lived on, carried by gods and mortals alike. The ocean was quiet, yet beneath the waves, a secret shimmered unseen. Poseidon drifted through the currents, his mind calm, his heart open. The depth flame pulsed faintly, no longer a fire but a rhythm. It no longer sought to burn, but to breathe within the sea. Every tide carried fragments of memory, flowing through time like whispers. The gods above the waves felt its subtle pull as well. Athena in her wisdom paused, hearing echoes beneath mortal thought. Apollo in his light saw the flames glow reflected in stars. Even Hades felt the depths hum softly beneath his shadowed realm. The flame was no longer hidden. It had become a bridge. Poseidon closed his eyes, listening to the voices of the deep. They no longer begged nor wept. They simply remembered together. In remembrance, the ocean found harmony, unbroken and eternal. A school of dolphins leapt around him, playful and unafraid. Whales sang from far horizons, their songs weaving with the whispers. Coral forests shimmered like lanterns, glowing with life and memory. Every creature bore the flame's touch without knowing its name. Poseidon smiled, not with triumph, but with quiet contentment. For he knew his role was not to command, but to keep. The sea was not his possession, but his trust to guard. The depth flame had taught him the strength of silence, and through silence, he had found connection deeper than storms. The mortal's shore still carried songs that honored his presence. Children repeated tales of the god who walked upon sand. They spoke not of fear, but of listening to the tide. Their voices joined the waves, and the ocean carried them wide. Poseidon rose to the surface, watching the horizon glow at dawn. The sun touched the waves, turning them gold, alive with memory. He felt the balance between sky, land, and sea restored. No longer forgotten, the flame had become part of all. Poseidon lifted his trident once more, not in command, but in blessing. Its glow rippled softly, a promise carried through water and air. The gods above looked on, each honoring the bond renewed. The mortals below continued their lives, guided by unseen whispers. And the ocean, vast and eternal, carried them all together. Poseidon's gaze lingered on the horizon as he whispered, "Let the flame never fade, for it burns now within us all." The sea answered in waves that kissed the shore with gentleness. The depth flame flickered once, then settled into everlasting calm. Poseidon descended again, vanishing into the embrace of his kingdom. The world above and below carried on, bound by shared memory. The story of the forgotten depth flame had reached its close. But in truth, stories never end. They become tides, returning always. The ocean keeps them. The gods remember them. Mortals sing them. And thus the flame endures, not as fire, but as life itself. In the silence of the deep, harmony breathed forever. The sea had spoken, and its story had reached its final shore. Poseidon lingered within the depths, listening to the silence he had shaped. No longer was silence heavy. It was alive, filled with presence. The depth flame had not vanished. It had transformed into memory. And memory, once awakened, never fades, only flows onward. Above, the world continued as though nothing had changed. Yet in the quiet gestures of mortals, the flame lived on. Fishermen whispered thanks before casting their nets at dawn. Children sang lullabies that carried the rhythm of waves. Sailors lifted their eyes to stars, trusting the sea's embrace. Each small act was a thread, weaving ocean and life together. Poseidon rose from the depths one last time, standing in twilight. The horizon stretched wide, painted in gold and violet hues. He breathed the air, feeling both sky and sea as kin. The gods watched from afar, their gazes softened with respect. For they knew he had found wisdom not in power, but in balance. And balance is the truest gift the sea could ever hold. The ocean shimmered, vast and endless, yet tender in its rhythm. It was no longer a domain of storms alone, but of memory. The depth flame had become part of its eternal heartbeat. Poseidon placed his trident into the sand, its glow fading. It stood not as a weapon, but as a beacon of remembrance. He turned once more to the waves, his home eternal. But this time, he did not vanish alone into the depths. The whispers followed, now woven with countless mortal voices. Together they formed a choir of memory, spanning sea and sky. Each note carried love, struggle, and the strength of endurance. And Poseidon smiled, for the ocean would never be forgotten again. The mortals on the shore felt the tide kiss their feet. They knew, without words, that something greater had touched their lives. Not with fear, but with connection deeper than words could speak. The stars above mirrored the waves, both burning with quiet flame. It was not the flame of destruction, but of belonging. A fire that warmed without consuming, a light without end. Poseidon sank once more beneath the tide, at peace. His story had been told, his purpose fulfilled, his heart whole. But the sea does not end, and neither do its stories. They flow like currents, returning always, reshaping, remembering. So too does this tale, carried by every whisper of tide. For when mortals pause to listen, they hear the flame's song. And in that song, they know the ocean remembers them too. The depth flame lives not in temples nor altars, but in silence. Silence shared between the sea and those who honor it. In that silence, Poseidon's legacy breathes forever, endless as waves. Thus ends the tale of the forgotten depth flame, yet not truly ended. For endings at sea are but beginnings of another tide. And the ocean, eternal and vast, holds them all in its embrace.